A lot of events have passed in the past few months since I made the script for the first part of this Great Salt Lake series, all for the worse. My previous conclusion that the Republican-run state government doesn't care about us has been proven right over the past couple of months. It started with what almost seemed like something good until you looked into it. Donald Trump has set aside $1 billion to help save the Great Salt Lake in next year's budget bill. Why is he doing this? Because the state government refuses to address this problem because they don't want to affect their pocketbooks. Also, allegedly according to rumor, Governor Cox made a behind closed door deal that if he let Trump construct a ICE mega detention facility in Salt Lake City, Trump would make efforts to try and save the lake. Allegedly, Donald Trump threatened the livelihoods of 2 million Utahns and would only stop if the state government allowed them to build a concentration camp in our state. Regardless of that horrifying notion, here's the details of the money Donald Trump is giving Governor Cox to save the lake. $300 million to pay farmers and other water users to lease or sell water rights so more water can flow into the lake. $100 million for ecosystem reconstruction and removal of invasive plant species. $240 million to support water conservation projects in cities and towns. $66 million to resolve a land dispute with Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge. $100 million for habitat management to protect migratory birds and other vulnerable species. And $190 million to invest in major engineering solutions to improve lake levels and the overall health of the system. All of these are objectively good things, but there's one problem. It's only a one-year plan. To see any sort of sustainable change for the Great Salt Lake, a similar amount of money would need to be dumped into the Great Salt Lake for 5 to 10 years for it to make any lasting change. Utah's water systems need a complete overhaul, and a patch like this will only slow down the lake's demise, not save it. What is needed is a long-term plan to save the lake, not a short-term fix that will kick the can down the road another 5 years. A few months ago, Kevin O'Leary announced plans to build the world's largest AI data center in Box Elder County, Utah. 40,000 acres, 62 square miles, a plot of land nearly 3 times bigger than Manhattan. The data center was announced to be cooled by water coming from the Great Salt Lake, the same Great Salt Lake that is disappearing because of overuse from the lake. Immediately, protests were sparked in outrage at the notion. The livelihood of 2 million Utahns are on the line. If the data center were to be cooled by the Great Salt Lake, it would be a death sentence. Thousands would become sick, hundreds would die, and thousands of American refugees will be forced to flee from their homeland if the lake disappears. That's why, on May 4th, 2026, around 1,100 protesters gathered at the rural Box Elder County Fairgrounds as the commissioners of the county voted on whether or not to let the data center be built. Despite massive backlash, the 3 commissioners let the data center go forward. Kevin O'Leary himself would make comments on the backlash, claiming that the protesters to be paid and fake.
What's happening in Utah right now is we think over 90% of the protesters are actually not people that live in Utah or Box Elder County. They're being bussed in. And so people live in Utah aren't stupid. they see this happening and they realize, why am I letting people who don't even live in my state make decisions for me? And I don't think it's going to work out for them. But there are professional protesters that are paid by somebody, I don't know who.
Shockingly, I agree with Kevin O'Leary. The people of Utah are not stupid, and that's why we're protesting you destroying our livelihoods. We also do not want people who don't even live in Utah dictating what happens in our state. Kevin O'Leary doesn't live in Utah. Hell, he's not even a U.S. citizen. He's a Canadian billionaire who wants to create the world's largest data center, and he's willing to kill 2 million Utahns to do it. That's why we're protesting, because you want to kill us. And the insane part about all of this is that the state government is going along with this like everything will be fine. Although, this shouldn't be a surprise from the same people who won't change anything about the water usage of the Great Salt Lake in fear that their checks from corporate donors across the state will dry up. Look at what Republican Governor Spencer Cox has to say about the data center.
As far as the data center, again, what I will say is this data center is going to use less water than the current water use. So this will actually return water to the lake.
Let's break that down. The data center will use less water than the current water use. Okay, that's nice that it won't double the amount of water that we're pulling from the lake, but to claim that it will bring water back to the lake is foolish. Is his claim that all the water being pulled from the lake currently will stop being pulled and all the water will exclusively go to the data center and it will use less water in total? No. Water is still being pulled from the Great Salt Lake for agriculture, mining, and many other things that they use it for, and they want to then add on an entire data center on top of that, which at least won't double the amount of consumption we're pulling from the lake, but it still means we're going to be consuming more water from the lake than before. He is just flat out lying. Spencer Cox is willing to sell out his state for menial benefits that won't impact his bottom line, and is willing to lie to us all to fill his pockets. Just look at the insane lies he's told about the data center and how it will save us all. Of course, when backed into a corner with a tough question, though, he falls apart.
Is this just in response to public pressure against this particular project?
Well, certainly in response to public, and that's important. I mean, public pressure is important. I think, again, as I've said, yes, this matters. I share those concerns, and if I had any concerns about, again, about water and the Great Salt Lake, I would have opposed it from the very beginning. But the public has brought up some concerns that some of us didn't think about that are important, and that matters. I mean, it absolutely matters.
The public had some concerns that some of us didn't think about. The public had some concerns that some of us didn't think about. That's because you don't think of the public. You don't care about the people of this state. You let a data center be built that you will profit off of that will pull water from the Great Salt Lake, which will kill it faster. You're scared to do anything about the existing water rights of the Great Salt Lake and instead are just pleading to the federal government to do something about this problem. And then they only offered you a temporary, poor quality fix in exchange for them letting you build a massive concentration camp in our home. You are a weak, pathetic man who's more concerned about lining your own pocket than making sure we all have somewhere to live in a decade. Republicans don't care about you. They want to line their own pockets full of cash while the rest of us die. Republicans will sell out your land to the highest bidder, let them ruin the land, and do whatever they want while they stomp over you and laugh. You should hate Republicans more. If you want a homeland, vote them out.